So the question is from Cool Master Manga with a very generous $10 super chat. We all know how weird it is that New Vegas never gets mentioned by Todd, besides recently, 14 years later, again, because of the TV show, kind of had to. What are your thoughts on Obsidian possibly making a Fallout game, and can Xbox overrule Todd? Firstly, the answer is yes. Xbox absolutely can overrule Todd. There's no doubt there. But whether they want to or whether they see that as the optimal choice is a separate question. I think that there's also a couple of other things that people don't really consider when it comes to like Obsidian specifically making the game, because it's easy for us to just be like, oh, well, they should just make Fallout New Vegas 2, or they should remake Fallout New Vegas. But obviously in the time since 2011 or 2010, when they were making the game, things have changed. A lot of the people that made New Vegas no longer work there. And so you're not talking about the same group of people. And I think that's important to understand, is that it's never as simple as just have the studio make it again because they made it 15 years ago. These studios change a lot as time goes by. So it's not the same studio. I mean, even the Bethesda Game Studios of 2011 is not necessarily the same Bethesda Game Studios of today, of course. So having said that, I think that if Phil really wanted to give the Fallout franchise to another team like Obsidian, he could. Obsidian right now is pretty booked up. They're working on Avowed, and they're working on, what's the other one they're working on? Is it Pillars of Eternity? Is that what they do? They're working on some other stuff. So they're pretty booked out. And if they were to be given Outer Worlds 2 and I don't know. Anyway, if they were given a bunch of stuff, then they probably could manage it. It's, they'd have their plates full, but it's possible. It's still probably years out, because I don't think they would cancel the Outer Worlds 2 to make a Fallout game. I don't think they would cancel, any of their other projects, and they're not that big. So even if they gave it to Obsidian, it's still probably a number of years away. Beyond that, if we look at like the Metacritic scores and the reception of some of their most recent games, specifically like Grounded from 2022, which lands at like 83 and is like a survival game. Very, interesting concept. Basically Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, but a game. And then The Outer Worlds, which a lot of people really liked it. It's the Bethesda RPG you always wanted, but it's not made by Bethesda, which is funny. And then other outlets gave it like 6 out of 10s and just said, it's just okay. I don't think it's a given that it will necessarily be hit out of the park. But at the same time, New Vegas is a game that launched and also didn't have amazing review scores. I mean, it landed at like 84 out of 100, and it's considered to be a masterpiece in hindsight, looking through rose-tinted glasses, because so many of us hold that game very dearly. But I think if you were to go back and try to play it today, fresh, and you never played it back in the day, it would be really difficult to get through, because it's just really clunky. It's still pretty buggy unless you mod the ever-living hell out of it. So maybe it's just a match made in heaven, and it would just work great. But almost all of that is beside the point, because right now Fallout fans are frustrated that they are not going to get a Fallout game, certainly from Bethesda, for probably 10 years. And if that's the case, they're like, it will be 19 to 20 years since the last major entry in the form of Fallout 4. Fallout 4 came out 2015. We probably don't get Fallout 5 until 2034 or 2035, which will put it 20 years after the fact, which is insane when you really think about it. That's ridiculous. So I think that people are right to be frustrated. And if Xbox wanted the easiest dub of all time, basically their equivalent of just doing a Bloodborne 2 or a Bloodborne remake, immediately everybody gets hyped, everybody's excited, everybody loves it, everybody's giving you positive press, immediate slam dunk. If they wanted that, all they had to do, or have to do, is announce it's happening. We're making a Fallout New Vegas 2, or we're making a Fallout New Vegas remake. It's happening. Still like 4 years out, but it's happening. They could do that. Easy brownie points. Everybody would get super, super stoked. Whether or not they do that is another question, because as we've seen, there are some things in the gaming industry where it just seems like such a layup, and some of these companies just don't do it for whatever reason. In the case of Bloodborne, it could be a licensing issue. In the case of New Vegas, who knows what the issue is? Because either way, Microsoft owns everybody that could possibly own the rights to it. They own Bethesda, who owns Fallout, and they own Obsidian, who did New Vegas. So they own all of the parties involved. I don't know who on earth could be holding it up other than them just not wanting to do it, right? So having said that, I think it's just a layup. So my impression and my gut's telling me that this might be similar to Bloodborne, okay? What I think they're doing is they're sitting on it. And I think they'll drop that little cinematic trailer or something that tells you nothing about the game. And they'll drop that when they announce whatever the next edition of Xbox hardware is. And they'll be like, yep, it's a launch title. And it might be New Vegas 2 or it might be a remake. But I think they're sitting on it until it actually moves consoles and can help them kickstart a new generation. In the same way, I think Sony, when they announce the PlayStation 6, I think they're going to just conveniently have a trailer for a Bloodborne remake or sequel. Because it just makes too much sense, you know? So that's my gut impression, is that I think they will do it because it makes too much sense not to. And they're not allergic to money. And they've greenlit a lot more projects that were much worse. So I think they will greenlight it if they haven't already. And then they're going to bring it out and announce it when it really has the potential to move the needle. And we reasonably could see a situation where the next generation of consoles launch with basically a New Vegas remake or sequel going head to head with like a Bloodborne remake or sequel. And it's just two beloved IP going at it, and we'll see which one moves more units. I really don't know. But I think that makes the most sense considering we haven't seen anything about it yet. There's been some like coy statements. I see some people in chat bringing up stuff that Sawyer mentioned. So for example, let me see if I can find it. Matt says, Josh Sawyer said he made Pentiment and traveled a bunch this year in preparation for a big new project. And yeah, Josh is one of the OGs over at Obsidian. So it's possible, but time will tell. But I don't think they're so stupid to just not do anything with it. Beyond that, Diavolo says, but wouldn't a sequel or remake of New Vegas hurt Todd Howard's feelings? I have a sneaking suspicion you may be right. Yeah, it's Todd's approach to the IP management, as has been discussed in that interview he did with Maddie, is pretty clear. Todd has said, like, I think it's okay for people to miss things. I think is how he phrased it. He said, I think it's okay for people to miss things. I think it's okay if people miss Fallout because it's been 20 years since the last major release. I think that's okay. And I understand why he thinks it's okay, because that's what happens when like they announce the next game. People get crazy hyped and lose their minds. So I get why he's stoked on the idea, but I don't think that necessarily means it's the best decision for the franchise or for the consumers. It might be the best decision for Todd to sit on the IP, or for Bethesda Game Studios to sit on the IP. But I don't think it's what's best for the franchise, because I don't know how on earth you would argue, and I've never seen anybody attempt to make the argument. I don't know how you would argue that the best thing for Fallout or Fallout fans is to do nothing with the franchise until 2034. I don't know how you argue that, unless like they would counter, be like, well, they're doing Fallout 76 expansions. Okay, for the people that like Fallout 76, that's solid. But I don't think you can argue that Fallout 76 expansions are an adequate substitute for a mainline Fallout game. I don't think Elder Scrolls Online updates or expansions are an adequate substitute for a mainline Elder Scrolls game. I don't think that follows. So I don't think that really counts as doing stuff in the Fallout franchise. But Luke, we have a big update coming to Fallout Shelter. I don't care. Who cares? Go dry up. I don't care. Drives me crazy. So all this to say, great question. Thank you for the super chat asking it, Cool Master Manga. I think at the end of the day, they can override Todd. I think they will. And I think we'll find out about it at the announcement of next generation consoles, where it will be one of the attempted console sellers for the next generation. Those are my thoughts. That's my prediction. And time will tell if it's right. He took my thing.